My topic was socioeconomic status, and I'm going to be looking at the effects of privilege and discrimination on child development, as well as some cartoon breaks from all the studies. So here's cartoon number one, Proud Slinky Parents. This is an overview of what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to first introduce the topic of socioeconomic status. Then I'm going to give you my articles, my findings. I'm going to look to compare articles, make connections, talk about intervention strategies, my thoughts on the issue, and then the big idea is going to be like a conclusion to sum up everything that I talked about. So what is socioeconomic status, which I'm going to abbreviate SES, and we don't exactly know. There's a lot of definitions out there that different people have, and some might say it's economic status. So how much money do I have? That tells me my socioeconomic status, but it doesn't, because that's only the economic part, and then prestige or social status would only be the socio part. I went to Harvard, so I have a higher SES than someone that doesn't. And actually, it's capital. It's kind of a happy medium. Capital is financial capital, so like money, cars, houses. And then there's human capital, which is how much you're worth as a person. I'm a college graduate, so I have a lot of skills. It makes me worth a lot. And then social capital, which is a combination of networks, diversity, participation in society, and all those things. All three of those things sum up capital, which sums up socioeconomic status. What does SES affect? It has a lot of different effects. It might affect health, cognitive and academic attainment, socio-emotional development, stress reaction, and as I said, it affects a lot of different things. So my articles, I have 3 articles. The first one talks about prefrontal development in children, the actual part of the brain, how it develops according to socioeconomic status. The second one talks about lexical and conceptual development. And then the third talks about knowledge and vocabulary skills. So Article 1 looks to make connections between SES and development of the prefrontal cortex. They hope to find similarities in low socioeconomic status children and children with PFC lacerations. And then the hypothesis is that high socioeconomic status children perform better on executive function tasks because their prefrontal cortex is better developed, and early life experience is what they hope to credit for this development. So subjects for Article 1. The high socioeconomic status group, which is HSES, there's 10 Caucasians, 1 Pacific Islander, 2 biracial. And then the low economic status group, socioeconomic status group, is 10 African Americans, 1 Caucasian, and 1 Latino, and 1 biracial. And each group had 3 boys, 10 girls of ages 7 to 12 years. So method 1, they used an electroencephalography test, which measures electrical brain activity, and this is the triangle test that they used. So the goal was to find those target triangles that were offset 10 degrees. And then they were shown these novel stimulus, also like pictures of pleasing things, and they were told to ignore those, which would display selective attention. The results were that they proved the hypothesis to be true. HSES children performed better, and LSES children showed many similarities in brain activity with those children with PFC lacerations. Method 2 was a different type of method. They used a neuropsychological test, which tested abilities that PFC controls. So there was a digit span, a language test, semantics, attention test, and inhibitory control test, which was a self-report. And then it measured selective attention, memory, language, those other things. And the results again confirm their hypothesis. High socioeconomic status children perform better on these tasks that are controlled by the prefrontal cortex, and they credit both of these results to early life experiences. HSES parents are more productive in reading and using techniques. So if early child experiences affect how PFC develops, is it less a question of socioeconomic status or more of parenting strategies? And if so, what is the mediatory element between good parenting and high socioeconomic status? Yeah, why does this happen? And then I'm not going to answer these right now because I'm going to have later articles. And then here's another cartoon break. These ones I actually find kind of funny. The other ones are cheesy. So Article 2 looked to make connections between SES and lexical and conceptual development of children. So a lot of the strategies, they were talking about how they target schools, and they say that this probably isn't accurate. That early life experiences also have a huge effect on how children develop these skills. So her goal is to draw conclusions about the effects of parenting strategies on child development. And the hypothesis is that because HSES parents have better parenting techniques, their children perform better on academic tasks. So the subjects for Article 2, there were 60 children, 2 to 6 years old, from the New York and northwestern Pennsylvania area. They were all monolingual English speakers. They were split up into the middle class and working class based on a parent survey, and there was no mention of gender or cultural background. It's used for Article 2. It was, to test the children's language. They showed the children pictures of animals. Some were standard, like, a rabbit or a frog, and then others were novel, like a frog with a rabbit head, like the picture on the right. And they were less interested in their knowledge and more interested in their use of language. So this is kind of the scale they use to measure the children's ability of language. One word response would be cat. 2 words might be a confusing, like cat, frog. Compounds are measured as, cat, frog. 3+ words they might say cat, body, frog, head. A phrase would be a cat with a frog's head. Blend might be frat, which is a frog plus a cat. And then there are also overextensions like calling one of the novel animals a leopard or something that it wasn't. So the results supported Bloomquist's hypothesis, and across the board, children from the middle class outperformed the working class children in number of morphemes, syntax, and also accuracy of labeling. She calls on archival research about how middle class parents communicate with their children, using like turn taking, parentese, and different parenting strategies. And she credits that to why middle class children perform better on these tasks is because of these parenting techniques. So my Article 2 thoughts and questions are similar again to my Article 1 thoughts and questions that, is this a question of socioeconomic status? Because it seems like they're talking a lot about parenting practices. So maybe we should go further back and what exactly leads to these parenting practices. Why do middle class parents use parentese and turn taking and other things like that? So this is cheesy cartoon number 2, and it kind of relates to what I was just talking about. So Article 3, goals and hypotheses. And this article kind of culminates my previous 2 articles. She first recreates previous data to find the correlations between SES and children's development, and then she tries to develop a causation, why wealthier parents communicate with their children in different ways. And her hypothesis is that, she thinks that wealthier parents have a better education, and that's what leads to them using better parenting strategies. The subjects for Article 3 were 47 toddlers, ages 2 to 6 years old, and their primary caregiver. There's 34 Caucasians, 5 African Americans, 5 Hispanics, and 3 Asians, and they were all English speakers from the Chicago area. So method 1 of Article 3 was the recreation of the old data. She observed the child and the caregiver in a 90-minute play session, and just to observe if the parent of different SESs did speak to their children differently. And then she sat the children down and gave them a vocabulary test, which tested whether or not they had different vocabulary abilities. and the results yielded favorable results. It confirmed her hypothesis, and that was step one, was to recreate the old data and make sure that those correlations were actually accurate. Method two, and now she looked to figure out why high socioeconomic status parents talk to their children in different ways than low socioeconomic status children. And so she interviewed the parents and quizzed them on what they knew about child development specifically, and she hoped to find that high socioeconomic status parents had a lot of knowledge on child development and low socioeconomic status children didn't. And the results again, her wish came true. What she hoped for came true. There were a lot of correlations between high socioeconomic status parents and their knowledge of developmental psychology. So what it came out to was, parents who go to college have a better chance of getting a good job, and that's why they're in the high socioeconomic status group to begin with. And this is a cartoon again, which is a little break from everything. So intervention possibilities, there are some things already out there. There's the No Child Left Behind policy, and it dedicates its efforts to reforming schools, but research articles might suggest that this is a little late. And it begins earlier with the communication with caregivers. And some people disagree with the implementation of strategies in general. They see the No Child Left Behind strategies as, pumping reading, math, and writing into these children's brains because that's what standardized tests assess. And as you can see out the window, there's science, the arts, and PE, which are all really important elements to learn, but they're not stressed in this policy. So in my discussion forum, there's going to be a couple articles on opinions of the No Child Left Behind, and then I'm going to let you, figure out, what do you think about it? Do you like it? Do you not like it? So what do I think about all this? What's the best strategy? I think information would be the best strategy. If we inform all parents on how successful strategies such as turn-taking and critical thinking questions and just reading to your child in general can be to your child's development, and this would help to bridge the gap. The information would bring the high socioeconomic status parents and low socioeconomic status parents closer together in what they know about child development and how they can help their child. Because I think, any parent, no matter what the group, would want the best for their child. So this is kind of the big idea. It's kind of summing up everything I talked about. So that it all begins with education. Education could lead, it leads one way to possibly a better job and more money. So, that's the economic part. And then it leads to knowledge on the other side also. And that knowledge is what in turn leads to being a better parent as far as helping your child develop. And so I guess the best cliche to sum up my entire thing is knowledge is power. And obviously there's a lot more work that needs to be done in this field, but they have figured out many different things.